Hi, this is Chris Oberg. We're reporting again from Atlanta inside the Superdome tonight. It's Friday night here. We'd like to give you a little Southeastern California viewpoint. It was another busy day, great evening by the way. I'll get to that in a moment. The morning began, the business session, with what most people would say is the least interesting of the whole session. We did the statistical reports this morning from the Secretariat's office, and from actually Bert Holoviak in Archives joined our conference secretary. They talked about the growth in the last 5 years of the church. They spoke about a growth rate of about 3.1%. It was interesting on the convention floor today when people heard that 3% growth number. A lot of the conversation focused on retention, because the growth has actually been much higher than that. It's just that we lose members very quickly in the Adventist church. So some conversation today about discipleship and how could we do better retaining these members. When the statistical report was concluding, they did throw in a little fact there that was very interesting, that in the Adventist church, we collect tithes and offerings of about $6.9 million every day. That's the daily average, which is a phenomenal number. What do we do with that much money? That's actually a question Jason Turner is always interested in. Jason Turner is one of our delegates from Southeastern. He's with the conference executive committee also and a member of the Escondido Church. Jason usually brings this up every few months on the executive committee, and he brought it up here today. He took opportunity to go to a microphone and ask a question. They put him on a 2-minute timer. And he asked about the finance report. In particular, he wondered how is the church thinking about the future trends in giving and the next generations, keeping in mind that younger Adventist Christians, although they give and they're very generous, they tend to give in a more broad fashion to other organizations, less giving strictly to the denomination. And Jason was wondering if the church leadership is thinking about that and how if we can keep up with this kind of a giving pattern in the future. He posed the question. I don't think there was any answer given today, but he did get the question out there, and that was the first conversation from Southeastern California that made it to the convention floor. That was a good moment. We should mention what most people are talking about today, the election of the officers. The General Conference Nominating Committee returned names for president, for secretary, and for treasurer. Most of you, by the time you look at this, will have already heard that Elder Ted Wilson is our new president, and that they returned Elder Lemon to the treasurer's office. He's been serving there since, I believe, 2002. A brand new secretary, although he's been serving as an associate secretary, and it was interesting, the more times they pronounced his name, G-T, it's spelled N-G. The more times they pronounced his name, I think the name caught on. He's speaks Chinese as well as English, obviously, and has been working inside the headquarters office for a while. So a mostly new administrative team, leadership team for the World Church, and that was the big news of today. I would say, however, the highlight of this day was the evening with the Loma Linda moment. We had great preaching from Dr. Randy Roberts, as usual. I've never heard a sermon from Randy that I didn't enjoy and learn from. We heard that tonight in a sermon he called God Will Provide. What God requires, God provides. A sermon focusing on Isaac and Abraham, the story in Genesis. Now, along with that sermon, however, we had a lot of Loma Linda musicians in the house. I'd like to ask Fabiola Guzman to join me. If you're from Loma Linda Elementary School, this is Mrs. Guzman, the 5th grade teacher. She's also a delegate for Southeastern California Conference. You were a proud mama and teacher tonight watching these kids.
I was. You know, I watch these children perform quite often at the church, but just to watch them here and know that they were from the school and younger and grown into these kids who are performing in front of hundreds, thousands of people, it was a very proud moment.
Would you talk to us a little bit about what it took for them to get here? Who paid their way? How did that happen?
I know a bit because I have seen it in the bulletins at church, but I know they worked hard. There was fundraisers, sales, and just watching them here and knowing that they not only just purchased a ticket, but they worked hard for it was really good to know.
Actually, I thought it was a lot of fun watching Mrs. Guzman sneak to the front row so she could take pictures of her students performing tonight. One part mom, one part teacher. It was a lot of fun to watch. Fabiola, I wonder though if you would reflect with us, if you can help the people at home get an idea of what it's like to be here. You and I are both first-time delegates. We're sitting in a stadium, a dome that seats 71,000 people. Give us a little reflection on these first 2 days of the business session here at the General Conference. What have you observed?
It's been busy. It's been a learning experience. I have been sitting in these seats and I have been overwhelmed by just everything that's been going on. Like I said earlier, it's a learning experience. It has just opened my eyes to what happens around the world in our church.
Now tell our friends back home what happened to this dome tonight when the Sabbath hours came.
Well, for the previous sessions, we sit in these seats with about 2,000 delegates, and that's about all that fills up, maybe the first couple seats in the red area. But this evening, as I turned around and I noticed that most of these red seats were taken, I was a bit in a moment of awe to know that tomorrow, Saturday, it's going to fill up, and I was starting to get a little nervous.
It's pretty incredible to look around and see an arena this size full of Adventist Christians. The power in the music and the singing and the amening, really, really heartwarming. The mayor of Atlanta referenced that a little bit tonight when he was here. He came to welcome us to the city, and then he said, "There is a spirit of praise among you people, and it's a blessing." Those were wonderful words to open the Sabbath. I hope when we leave Atlanta, they'll be saying the same thing. That's what we pray for. Well, this is your Southeastern California Conference viewpoint for tonight. We'll give you another one in a couple of days. Happy Sabbath.